Are you happy in your business? Now, I have had my share of emotional ups and downs in my 20 years of being a solo entrepreneur coach, and the patterns I've seen in myself and in my clients is that those downs are usually when I was personally feeling unfulfilled. Sometimes it was because a launch that flopped, and sometimes it was just life and had nothing to do with business. But those ups, oh boy, those are the times when I was feeling my most authentic and completely aligned to my purpose, or when I just felt like I was rocking that work-life balance. I would be thinking I could do this all day long and never feel tired. One of my loves is sharing what works for me and what has been working for my clients to achieve this very feeling, full of passion, happiness, peace, and freedom. So I decided to create a private podcast for coaches. Maybe you just want to develop better communication skills that boosts engagement, leads to better results, and makes you feel like you're actually making a difference in the lives of the people you serve. Then you're invited too. We talk about this and more in the UBU private podcast for coaches. Whether you're a mentor, a parent, or run a client-focused business, coaching skills benefit everyone and anyone who wants to communicate in a way that builds relationships. Fall in love with your life and business again. Click the link in the show notes for your invitation to join us right now. Then come back and enjoy this episode. Hey, Difference Maker. We are back with an amazing episode that wasn't supposed to be an episode, but boy, am I glad that we were recording. My friend Dawn Pensack and I hopped on a, oh my gosh, it's been a whole year, how the heck are you kind of conversation. And I'm so glad that she consented to letting me record it and letting me leave in some of the vulnerable parts of her story, because what a whirlwind. It's a whirlwind of life getting in the way of business and business getting in the way of life. Probably some things that you can relate to on some level. Now, if you have any questions about what you hear during this episode, you can always send me a message at powercoachjen.com and click on my face and type in your message. Or if you're brave, you can send an audio or a video. I would love to feature you in a future episode. For reference, Dawn is an Enneagram Type 6 Swing 7 and a 1-3 generator. And I, of course, am an Enneagram Type 7 and a 6-2 generator. Listen in on the stories and lessons learned through self-awareness, heartbreak, and healing. We did our best to edit it down to just be one episode. That way you don't have to wait until next week to hear the whole conversation. So if you want a real-life, vulnerable sharing of what happens when you work against your personality, how to get unstuck, and the massive changes that happen when you start working according to your true core self, your innate behaviors, or energy patterns, stick around. It's time to stop comparing yourself to others and plug in to what is uniquely you. Welcome to Unbox Your Personality, the podcast for coaches, creatives, and educators like you who understand that your happiness makes you more effective at what you do, bringing out the best in others. I'm Jen P. Higgins, personality strategist and Enneagram fluff remover. Get laser focused on who you are and who you aren't, so you're free to make the impact you were born to make. And have fun doing it. Your personality is your business. So let's get down to business.
So my journey really started right around February of 2022, which is when I realized my life was very comfortable. It was very stagnant. It was just in this kind of like holding pattern where every day was the same, it was kind of like Groundhog Day, my strengths that I had not been leaning into for so long, like the boldness and the courage and the passion. I feel like that had been just squashed. And COVID, was a big part in really sucking a lot of the joy out of my life. I mean, I certainly had to reframe that whole experience, just like every other mom, right? Who all of a sudden is now the homeschool mom, taking care of everything in the house. My husband, right? He was home full time prior to COVID. He was working. He was out of the house for probably 10, 11 hours. We're all home and I'm trying to manage everything. It was a totally different dynamic, you know? And he was also working so much more being home. Like it was super crazy. And so there was a lot of distance and a lot of resentment on my part in the moment because I'm like, I want to be building a business. I want to be doing all these things. I also noticed early on, thankfully, that I'm so lucky in so many ways because I get to be home with them. Like I have this freedom. I have this flexibility in my time, right? Where I can be with my kids during the day. We went hiking every day in the summer. Like we had our pool, we had a couple acres. So we got to do a lot of things that I know a lot of people didn't have the luxury of doing that. But in the moment, I felt so like I was so unhappy with life. Mm-hmm. Those 2 years were really, really hard. And then my marriage, like it just kept, you know, like he's so stressed with work. I'm so stressed with feeling like I'm taking care of everything, right? So anyways, it was just distance. And so in February of 2022, I was like, I need to change my life. Like everything about this. This is just not what I want to do for the next, 20 years. And so we started going through divorce. We sold our house, basically, got rid of everything. Like just a massive shedding of everything. I knew through the whole traumatic transition of everything, I knew that it was me that I needed to shift, that I'm holding myself down. At first, I was like, it's the environment, it's the circumstances, like there's all these things that's keeping me stuck and that's keeping me from really feeling like I'm living my best life. So I started to realize very quickly, I'm like, no, this is 100% me. Like I need to go all in. So for probably 6 months, I went all in on myself. I went to different therapies, different healers, coaches. I took a big pause for my business in terms of like launching new things. And I had some new clients that came in. I had some programs that I was wrapping up. I was just really kind of in the space of flow and allowance and also acceptance, like accepting, okay, this is where my life is right now. It's all good. I'm going to release any judgment like that I should be here. And in the 10X book, which I've been diving into, oh my gosh, this is so good. So good. He talks about, the gap and the gain. So living in the gain where it's like looking at everything as a lesson and everything as an experience, and everything as a gift, right? And looking at the progress and focusing on the journey rather than like, this is where things should be, or this is what I should have or whatever. And so I really started living into that mindset. And every day I'm journaling on what I learned about myself today, what strengths I used, how I showed up to share my message, how I showed up for my kids. And I got really, really clear on my core values. And yeah, that was like huge, and it's like, okay, what are my non-negotiables for life that I will absolutely not budge on or shift or whatever, So that was huge. And then through that whole fall, winter, I still wasn't quite sure where my kids and I were going to settle because I've always wanted to move. Like New Jersey has never felt like home to me ever. We decided we'll move to Rhode Island. Like we'll have this outdoor lifestyle. We'll be on the beach. I thought it would just be so perfect. And I spent months traveling there and looking at places and houses and all the things, researching the towns and finding the right school and everything. And then my kids were like, no, we don't want to leave because they really love their school right now. They go to a really tiny private school and they have the most amazing friends and the moms are wonderful. So then I was like, all right, I guess we're going to stay, right? So we're going to stay here through the whole growth journey. And then I started dating a couple months ago and all the arrows just kept pointing back to Wally. It was like everything I was looking for and everything that I wanted and all these things. It was just like he has a lot. Like now, of course, there's always issues and challenges, right? Like, as you know, right? And we had talked quite a few times over the past year around, is this the right decision? Do we really want to move forward and get divorced? Do we want to like take this time? Because at first, okay, Aries rising, Sagittarius sun, like The Sagittarius energy is huge in my chart. And the one reason why I was so unhappy where we like in our old lifestyle, right, was because I always felt stuck. Like we weren't doing new things. We weren't getting outside of our town. Like we were so busy in the hustle of the day to day, like the day to day routine. There was no vacation. There was no adventure. There was no like branching outside of just like this little thing. And of course, right, with COVID, there's not a lot that we could do, but there was also a lot that we could do, like that we weren't doing. And so I just started thinking and thinking and thinking. And then with all these new experiences and meeting new people, my values just kept getting clearer and clearer and clearer. And I realized with Wally, I was like, there is a lot that he has always brought to the table, the relationship, the family. And I was so focused on all these other things, right? Like I wasn't looking at the gifts. And one of my friends said this so perfectly. She was like, you wanted him to meet all your needs. Like it's not fair, right? For one person to have to do everything where he has certain roles, but then a lot of these other things, like I can have my needs met for adventure. Like if he doesn't want to always be planning the next road trip, why can't I go with some girlfriends, right? Or go by myself, which is what I did all winter, basically, So anyways, things just started getting clearer and clearer. And then I started realizing, so right now we paused the divorce. It just really made me like so aware of all these patterns, So in March, I was like, okay, I'm going all in on my health. I lost almost 35 pounds since the middle of March. I'm working with like a plant-based doctor. That's been the theme, going all in on me and not putting so much pressure and expecting so much on one other person. And so now we're just talking. We're starting to like date again. He's taking me out to dinner tomorrow night. I've always invited him to do whatever with us, on the weekends. And we've gone on actually a couple little vacations together with all 4 of us. So the kids always love that. It's like just totally open to possibility. Of course, there's a lot to talk about, moving forward and things like that. Like there's no rush to buy our next house or like move in together again, like things like that, It's just really interesting.
It probably feels really good to your Sagittarius.
Yeah. And I just think too, like with the need for adventure and the need to do new things, we have like a summer bucket list. And for a while I was, really pressuring him, like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Like, you need to add your things to the list and, all of that. But truthfully, he is not interested in like doing a lot of things. Like he's Cancer rising. So it's all about, that the home, the family, that like very close knit. And even with his friendship, like his friend circle, it's like the same people since 6th grade. And that always kind of bothered me. But now I'm like, he's introverted, very introverted. He's comfortable with the same people. That's not a terrible thing. I was really like, I bulldozed through, like, I was like, this is what I want. And it was I wouldn't say it was very impulsive, but it was really not very compassionate or very understanding. It was a very selfish lens.
I call it a sleep state because that feels better than saying that we were selfish. It's not that we were selfish. It's just that we're in a sleep state of not necessarily seeing other people in the context of other people. We're only seeing them in the context of our own stories, our own wiring, our personality paintbrush.
Yes, exactly. And then, I realized, of course, right, throughout the year, like all these things that were bothering me so much, like the patterns followed me. Everything just followed me. So it's like you want that new house or that new town or even like to live in a new country, right? To escape what you don't like about your life right now. But we hear that saying that everywhere you go, there you are. And there it is, right? It's always there. So that was a huge, huge, huge wake up call. And so this year in business, I really have taken this like deep breath. And it's like, okay, I know that anything I focus on is going to be successful. This is a belief that I am really living into. I know where I put my focus and attention and energy. That's going to move. There's going to be momentum. So it's like, what exactly is it well, I've had a couple different identities throughout the last couple years. I've been, the moon lady. I've been the tapping lady. I've been like the stress burnout person. I realized, actually, my friend, she said to me, if you could do anything for just 90 days, like that was it. Like, she's like, James, he doesn't tell you you can only do one thing if you're multi-passionate, right? He doesn't say you have to just stick to one thing. He says, stick to one thing for 90 days.
90 days.
Every 90 days, you can do something different. So you don't have to give up everything you love. But for 90 days, you have one focus. And when she said that to me, I knew immediately that I don't want to be the stress and burnout person. And I was like, that's not me. It's not me anymore. And then I was thinking back to this past year. There's a couple things that are in my mind that are kind of, percolating right now. But I think what's really coming together is working with smaller groups. So almost like having masterminds where I focus on a lot of the principles from this 10X book, where it's like getting clear on what you really want, creating that like 10X identity, that 10X vision, and then working from the future self. And that has been my biggest breakthrough during this year. There's been tons of shedding, tons of releasing. I have more space in my life and my calendar than I ever had. And that has been amazing. It's been amazing to, be able to create that space and then focus on going all in, right? Focusing on going all in. For a while, it was my healing. Then it was my health. Now it's kind of in the relationship part, but going all in on an area of your life that you want drastic progress and living from the future self. What is it that you want? Your values, your non-negotiables, and like creating that relationship, like really having a relationship with your future self and looking at everything from that lens, that 10X lens. So it's been a really cool journey. And I've had to let go of so much. So many communities for me has been a big thing. Like I was leaking so much energy.
Yeah.
And that has been like a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful journey.
Very beautiful. I love it so much. For one, it's validating for like some of the things that I teach because of my own experience. I mean, because it takes time. You're giving me of what happened in the last year, right? And so a lot of times when people want to work with a coach, they're not willing to put in the time or the effort. And so sometimes I don't actually see the transformation. Everyone that I've seen have a true transformation in their life, they go through these same steps. Like core values is huge. That is huge. It's the first thing I help the client figure out what their personality is. And it doesn't have to be 100%. So something that I have, I guess I've kind of coined it as like pseudotypes. Like let's just go with this is your type. And it's okay if you're wrong, but like we've got to start somewhere. You don't have to be like 100% confident that you are. Like for me, I thought I was a type 4 when I first began. I was wrong. I was very wrong. But at the time, I was going through some trauma. And so I needed to learn how to get in touch with that type 4 in me to heal from that trauma. And every type on the Enneagram is within us. And there's healing when we step into what is this role or this mask or this persona? What is it? How is it serving me? If I am a pseudo 4, how is it serving me? It's not whether you're wrong or right or anything like that. And I think I said this on a podcast about core values. Like core values change because as we heal, like you said, that's not me anymore. The stress and burnout lady is not me anymore. Why? Because you're not stressed and burned out anymore. So why would you want, if that's something you were healing from, why would you want to go back there and kind of rehash that? So there's certain patterns, like when we teach from a scab instead of a scar, we can still help people. But when we're teaching from a scab, you know that it's not really your true passion, but it's like a collaborative effort to heal together, which is beautiful. Like that is That is a very valid approach, but it's not going to be sustaining. It's not going to be long lasting, because once you have healed, and if the people that are following you are not healing, it becomes a trigger and it can bring you down. Like, I've already gone through this. Don't drag me through that again. But if we have healed and formed a scar and realize, yes, we are still passionate about stress and burnout, like you still want to help, even in your healing, you still find it a passion of yours, then we can go back and truly help people that are suffering from that. And it's just it's more from a mentor position instead of a peer position. Like, this is our community and family versus I am here to teach you or be a role model or to be an influencer on this topic, because it no longer triggers me. It's a scar, and it's my accolades. It's like, here's proof that you can get through this, because here's my scar to prove it. And I think that's why we go through healing. And for some people who don't realize that, I'm not saying that you're one of these, but like for some people who don't realize that we are dynamic and we're constantly changing, there can be a lot of guilt around that. Like, oh gosh, I spent all this time investing into this business, and I've wasted time, and it's never a waste if you healed. Are you feeling a bit disappointed that you haven't finished that project yet? Are the kids' schedules impacting your business? Or are the demands of your business affecting your relationships at home? Maybe you need a magic formula for that work-life balance before your fire gets so dim or it completely burns out. I've been there. There was a point in my life where I was juggling 2 businesses and homeschooling and had personal health issues. There was barely time to even connect with myself, much less connect with my husband. When I was finally officially diagnosed with ADHD, I felt like that explained everything. I had a new perspective and started approaching things in a new way. So I created a guide containing 20 tips that I personally use, and they have worked for me for helping me stay on course with my goals. Now, you might not have ADHD, but I bet you can relate to having a million distractions during the day. So if you're ready to stop procrastinating or stop being hard on yourself for missing yet another deadline, self-imposed or not, go ahead and download the guide at powercoachjen.com. If you just find one tip from the list that helps you move forward today, you will be so glad you took the time to read it. Go to powercoachjen.com and download the guide right now.
Right. Yeah. And I had to let go of so much of that, Jen, because I was like, I've built this community. I've built this business around this. I'm in communities as the expert in this, but this isn't, like you said, my passion. This isn't what I'm put on this earth to do. And even if I think about my human design and my, like for Gene Keys, like the prosperity codes and all of the different things that are in there and everything that I've learned about myself over the last couple of years, that's just not the gift that I am here to give. Yeah, like when you've built an identity, like when it's been such a big part of your life and your business and, your livelihood and your attention and energy, it's hard. It can be really challenging to let that go for sure. And I love what you said about, teaching from a scab rather than a scar. And this is a lot of like what we're told, right? Like you're your ideal client. What are you going through? Okay, now teach other people. And so I've done that so many times throughout my life. And now I'm like, there is a different level. There's a different version of myself that I'm ready to go all in on. Because why not? Like, what would happen, right? In a year or 3 years or 10 years if I didn't go all in on this life that I really want, you know? But yeah, so much shedding for sure. So much shedding.
And it's so
Yeah.
much freer when we don't, like, I've had a lot of conversations about our 4D selves, just kind of like the science behind 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions. Like, we live in a 3-dimensional world, but we're impacted by the 4th dimension, which is time. Even though we have a very limited understanding of that construct of what 4th dimension is. And when we can understand that time in the 4th dimension, tell me if this is like getting too woo-woo, but in the 4th dimension, time doesn't really exist. And that's why these strategies that you're talking about, like having a relationship with your future self, that's working at a frequency that is in tune with the 4th dimension, because in 4th dimension, it's just all happening at one time. And you can have a relationship with your future self in the 3rd dimension, and it will manifest because it actually is happening. Like, we are impacting a 4th dimension that we can't actually see, but we are impacted by. And the 3rd dimensional idea of time is that it's categorized as past, present, and future. And that's not real. It's just a 3rd dimensional theory of how we can understand it. It's real in the 3rd dimension, but it's not real in the 4th dimension. And so when we can raise our frequency, when we can raise our vibration to be more in tune to that, that's when we have this ability to tap into our intuition. That's when we have this ability to, I mean, it's that dream state. Like, nothing chronological, nothing makes sense in time when you're in a dream state, right? Like,
Right.
in your dream, you've surely been dreaming for like 4 days now, and you wake up and it was just a 15-minute power nap.
Right.
You know, that's just kind of like the glimpses of like who we truly are. And these patterns of behaviors, they're only constructs to help us understand the 3D world. And while we are living in the 3D world, we kind of have to play by those rules. We have to play by the rules, but we don't have to believe that we are limited to the rules. So you're saying you're having to shed a lot of stuff. Like, a lot of my letting go has just been like, why does it have to look like the way I think it needs to look like? It's already happened. So I just need to follow that line of thinking, like that. I just have to follow the vision of this has already happened. So why am I even worrying about if it's going to fail? And why am I even worrying about having 40 followers instead of 1,000 followers? That's for my YouTube channel. But you know what? I have 40 followers doing nothing. Like, I've put it on the back burner because I'm like, no, this is not my passion right now. Do I still want to do it in the future? Yes, but I don't have to define that because it's already defined. So who am I? Who am I to try to manipulate something that has already happened in the 4D space? It's already happened. It's already finished. I just have to live my life. And do you have gate 58 in your human design?
Gate 58.
In the root center.
No, mine is open. What's gate 58?
That's the gate of joy.
Oh, okay.
And the channel, get this, kills the type 7. That channel is the channel of judgment.
So the 18 to 58?
So 18 is correction, and 58 is
Okay.
joy. So in order to like follow my gut from the spleen, in order to follow my gut primal self-preservation instinct, I have to correct. I'm going off in all of these directions and not following the path. So I have to keep correcting and not overcorrecting, because sometimes I'm like, oh, this isn't making me happy. And then I overcorrect. No, that's not making me happy. Then I overcorrect. And I'm just going in all these different directions, but trying to focus on the correct path is going to lead to the joy that I'm looking for.
Those are closed for you?
Yes.
Okay. And is the 18 to 58, is that connected?
Hold on, let me look mine up. Load chart. You're a generator too, right?
Yes. A 1-3. What are you?
I am a 6-2,
Okay.
which behaves like a 3 in the early years. So a 6-2 is separated into 3 stages of life. So in the first 30 years, they behave like a 3, and they're just going around. Like, what's the word for 3? Like 6 is the role model, 2 is the hermit. What is 3? Martyr. So 1 is investigator and 3 is the martyr, which means that they're trial and error. So there's a lot of trial and error that's associated with 3.
Okay.
I don't really like that word martyr. It's probably why I suppressed it. But as a 6-2, those first 30 years is a lot of trial and error, trying to get as many experiences in as possible. And it's associated with a lot of struggle. And I think that's why maybe that's what the martyr word is. Like, there's just a lot of struggle of like, I'm doing all these things and what good is it doing? I'm not gaining anything. And so there's a lot of martyr energy around that. And so for a 6-2, the first 30 years is working in that line 3 space. And then from age 30 to 50, roughly, that is the hermit stage, where the introvert comes out, and it's a lot of reflection, it's a lot of projection. This is line 2, of going back and making connections between like all of the struggles, like what did all the struggles represent and how does it all come together. This was where I was when I wrote my book, and having to go back and really look to see how did all the pieces seem discombobulated, but they really are all connected, and how did they connect? And I think that's one, the book was really healing for me, but I also think that that's why it was so impactful for other people who are on that journey of trying to understand how everything is connected in their life through my stories. And then 50 and beyond is really the role model journey. And that is associated, it's aligned with the Chiron return for the person. And that happened to be yesterday for me, I think. What day is today? So today, 27th? So the 26th is when my Chiron returns. So plus or minus a day. So I'm going through it right now. I'm going through my Chiron return, and crazy. So I went and saw my therapist yesterday, and I am working through my childhood, my inner child wounds, and identifying the childhood wound that I received from my mom. I have a childhood wound that's separate from my dad, and a childhood wound from my sister, who was kind of like a mother figure. She's 7 years older than I am. And so, I mean, it's crazy how it's just crazy. It's like, I mean, it's not crazy, but and it's because it's already written. My story is already written. I'm just in this 3D world living it. And so I can either lament it or I can enjoy it. Like, those are my choices.
Right.
And I didn't put this as one of the things that I quit, but I think that's what I am quitting. Like, I don't want to lament. And I don't really feel like that's ever been a part of my vocabulary, but I think it's been a part of my subconscious, that somewhere in my subconscious, I've been like, why can't things just go my way? Like, why do I have to constantly reframe these things in order to speak joy into my life? Why can't it just automatically be joyful?
Right. Yeah.
And so I don't think that I realized that I was doing that was my self-talk until just recently, and it takes very painful things and painful lessons for us to learn for that to happen, where like there's a falling out in a relationship, whatever that relationship might be, for us to kind of step back and go, okay, I'm going to learn something from this about my story, which is already written. And what's that song that says, like back in the 90s, oh, maybe early 2000s, that like you're writing your story. That was a pop song. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Terry will know. He knows those little things like that. It's basically like, here's an open book and you can write your story. And while that feels good, while that feels empowering, I think the most empowered I have felt is when, instead of writing my own story, go seek the story that's already written and live it out. So like whatever that purpose was, I was designed for a purpose. Go seek out what that purpose is and then go live it. And it's going to happen. Like it's just going to happen because it already has. It's that 4D mentality.
So it's kind of like, is that like thinking that there's a lot of different paths that you could step on to live the future that you want?
I think that if we know where the end goal is, we will be rerouted like a GPS. Like we put in the destination, and if we go off the path, we will be rerouted as long as we pay attention to the GPS.
Right. So you are creating your end goal, or you're putting your end goal in there.
According to the
Right.
purpose. Yeah, because we're seeking out. Like there's a purpose. It's not necessarily like my business. Okay, because my business, I can write the path, but it's seeking out where is the destination. And so is that destination like happiness and freedom? And to spread happiness and freedom. I'm speaking from like a type 7. It's kind of like, when in marketing, we say, what is it that your customer wants? Well, they want to know how to create this spreadsheet. Okay, but what is it they really want? They really want to stop being frustrated with not, like, they don't want to be stressed about this spreadsheet that doesn't make any sense to them.
Right.
And there's different solutions to get to that. Either you can give them this tool or this course, or you can just do the spreadsheet for them. Like it depends on who your audience is. And there's a whole smattering of the people who just want you to do it for them. And you have to decide, was that aligned with me? Like, do I just want to do things for people? No, I want to empower people. I want to empower people to be able to do it for themselves, to give them the confidence. And so that's the right relationship. Me as the teacher or the business owner, attracting a customer that wants the same thing. Now, the next person who has the exact same accolades as I do, the exact same training, the exact same passion, the exact same skills, may have different values or a different destination. Like their destination isn't to empower other people. Their destination is to take things off of people's plate. And so therefore their business is going to look like, I'm going to give you done for you services. You just pay me and I will do everything for you so you don't have to worry, you don't have to stress. Because what the customer really wants is to not stress. And so it's kind of that same way, except for on a much higher plane, as far as if I'm the customer of life, what is it that I really want in life? And once we find that out, we can plug it into our GPS system. And then however, like if we want to take the straightest path there, okay. If we want to go on these adventurous routes, okay. But we have to stand firm in the belief that it's going to happen because the GPS works. And trust that we're going to be rerouted.
Right.
By life somehow. Sometimes it's, sometimes we get derailed because there was an accident and we have to go on a detour, and we can't be so attached to that and be like, oh my gosh, now I can't do it. Look, I'm not going to reach my destination because there was an accident here. And no, it's just, we're going to reroute it. And there's going to be a different adventure when we go on this detour. That's going to be different. Doesn't mean that it's better or it's worse. It's just going to be different. We're still going to land in the same place.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I love that analogy, thinking about it like that.
Have you seen the series Manifest?
Mm-mm.
Or even Final Destination? It's kind of the same
What's
concept.
what's Manifest? Is that on like Gaia or
It's
Netflix or
on Netflix.
okay.
Okay, let me warn
Okay.
you. The acting and directing isn't amazing. But the plot is is very, very good as far as like you play a role, but you still have a choice. And I think the most adaptable people in our 3D world understand that. Like understand that we have a role, we play a role in the community, but we still have a choice on whether or not to play that role. And our default mode is to want to play that role. And sometimes because of the energy that was bestowed on us for whatever reason, like if we say it in terms of human design, whatever energy that was in our presence in those 88 days before we were born kind of determine how the energy in our body flows and which ones are fixed and which ones are vulnerable. And like understanding that really helps us see, like when we are in our not self, we are basically working against our personality, and it feels uncomfortable. So for a generator, it looks like frustration. It feels like frustration. And so instead of being attached to the emotion, understanding what the emotion represents, I say this in my book, it's an emotional yardstick. The function of an emotion in brain science is to remember. And so if we are feeling something, but not exploring what it is that we need to remember or the lesson that we are supposed to learn, then we're just so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. And most of the time it's because it's a sleep state. We need to wake up to what is it that this emotion is telling us. And that emotion has to travel to your hippocampus, has to travel to your prefrontal cortex for us to actually do that in a very effective way. If we let it stay in our amygdala, it's fight or flight or freeze or
Right.
flop.
Right. That's really interesting. I love what you said about the emotion is there to help us remember. Because, yeah, with the generator, right? The frustration that has been so top of mind for me. It's like, if so many things have felt hard and frustrating and like I'm spinning my wheels in the mud, right? Then why? Why keep going down the path of hard when there's this path of ease
Mm-hmm.
that's opened up without even really doing anything, you know? Why not continue going down that path? Yeah, and I love how we went back to the human design for a little bit because I totally forgot about the 1 to 3, the investigator. And going back and just thinking about that for a moment, it's so relevant to what I'm creating right now. It's almost like a lifestyle brand. Like I have a new Instagram page where I'm really sharing my journey through all of the different, adventures and lessons. It started with the plant-based journey. So my name for that page is Eat Your Greens Today. But I think I'm going to rebrand it completely. This is one of my goals for this week when I meet with my coach on Thursday is to I think I want to do something related to the 10x idea or make it something along the lines of like momentum. So I'm still playing around with it and seeing how I want to name it, how I want to kind of brand it. But I will definitely share once I have everything figured out.
Yeah. Thanks.
So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it's really cool. Like, and even like I'm talking about human design a lot lately, mainly because I'm still learning it and still it's all tied into the Enneagram. And the last client that last week, I was talking about human design, and then I had to stop myself because I have to remember, like, people don't understand the brain like I understand the brain. And so I had to stop and reiterate. I said, okay, so let me just remind you, like, what the difference is of human design and the Enneagram. Human design is telling you how your energy flows. It more speaks to, like, how we're nurtured because of all the open channels and the open centers and the open gates. So it helps us understand how we have nurtured, and it's almost like a red flag of what causes stress for your Enneagram type. And then your Enneagram type tells you what to do, like where you need to go on your growth path. And then you can go back and find the details in the human design. Like, oh, this is what my energy is doing, but here is where I have been vulnerable. Where have I allowed other people to cross my boundaries? Where have I allowed other people to tell me a story that is different from my story? And that's where the open spaces are. And I mean, I love human design, but I think with human design alone, all it does is explain, but doesn't really show us the way out the way the Enneagram does.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. There's so much in human design that, like, you're always a lifelong learner, right?
Yeah.
It's, and it's always just peeling back layers and layers of who you are and uncovering, you know, um, who you want to be, where
Yeah.
you want to go, how you want to best work with your energy.
It's like human design is your life's work. Like it represents
It
your life's
is.
work. And the Enneagram is like your moment's work. It's like, what do I do right now? Like when you're stuck, the Enneagram tells you how to get unstuck in that moment. But it doesn't really tell you what you're designed for. It just shows you the patterns that make you stuck and how to reverse those patterns so you're not stuck. And if you don't understand the core motivations as that ultimate thing, that ultimate destination on your GPS that you want. And not a lot of people do, because people who study the Enneagram are only looking at behaviors. They're only looking at behaviors, and they're using it to explain. They're using it the way like human design. But human design doesn't necessarily. It can tell you what to do to get out of a stuckness, but it's just so much. It is so much. It's very hard to, like, in the moment when you are like spiraling, to go, okay, well, what gate is that? Do I even have that gate? Is it open? Is it closed? Is it conscious? Is it unconscious? And without having like a constant reminder. Whereas, like, for me, when I know that I'm stressed, the trigger is, okay, I'm starting to go into my 1. And what is it that I need to do? I need to actually go to my 5, which is to stop, observe. What can I learn here? What questions do I need to be asking? Do I need to kind of temporarily go into a little fantasy world just so I can catch my breath? Like, these are all really healthy steps for a type 7 going into that type 5. I think the last time we talked about is that you might be a type 6, but we've never really actually talked about what that looks like. And there's been a lot of things that you've said today that I was like, oh, I can see that. I can see that. And I can see with the Sagittarius why it's there's such a heavy 7 wing there. But the patterns are very 6-like, of you just wanting to go with the flow, and just like that is a 6 pattern going to a type 9, of just, and a 6 feels, I won't say guilty, but it's hard for a 6 to kind of let go of these things that you've invested so much energy in.
Yeah.
And a core 9, it's not hard. It's not hard for them to let go of things that are uncomfortable. But 6s will hold on to it because of that loyalty. It's like, but I invested so much into it. How can I let it go? And so stepping into that type 9 energy is like, okay, let it go. And there's a lot of healing. There's a lot of healing in that. Like, from my vantage point, it's really beautiful to kind of see you naturally finding that. I mean, it's not naturally, like, you've had some some pushes along the way, right? But it's organic. I guess that's the
Right.
way to say it. To see that. And I think that's when it sticks, is when we actually experience it. We just experience the healing, and then instead of it being theory.
Yes. Yeah, we have to live it. And that, I feel like that's one thing that I've learned too in such a big way is that I guess it's probably because, I'm a 1-3, so I'm always seeking and gathering information.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like to teach from information is so different than to teach from experience and knowing. And that's one thing that I'm working on leaning more and more into with this new level, because that's what's going to connect. That's what's going to connect me with the right people.
Yeah.
In the most powerful way.
So good.
Yeah.
This is so good. We do not have enough time.
I know, this was such a great conversation. I'm so glad that we got to catch up on a deeper level. It just kind of,
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been really good.
Yeah, this was really good.
If you got this far in the episode, thank you. Thanks for cruising along our stream of consciousness. But I hope you agree this was a juicy one. I personally got a lot of downloads after this, and I hope you do too in the next coming weeks. If you have any questions or suggestions for future podcast episodes, go click on my face at powercoachjen.com and send me a message. Until next week, keep unboxing yourself so you can unleash your power. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and reviewing the Unbox Your Personality podcast. To learn more about yourself, go to powercoachjen.com. Find out how you are different so you can make your difference.